When people talk about love, they often don't mean love at all. They mean the story they've been carrying in their heads since childhood. They imagine a partner who never disappoints, who always says the right thing, who understands every hidden thought and fills every missing piece in their soul. That's not love, that's a fantasy. And when people step into a relationship with a fantasy, they're setting themselves up for heartbreak before it even begins. The reason 95% of people fail in love isn't because love doesn't work. It's because their expectations don't match reality. They walk in thinking, this person will make me happy, this person will complete me, but here's the truth, no one can complete you. No one can carry the burden of being your endless source of joy, your emotional healer, and your perfect companion all at once. When you place that kind of weight on someone else's shoulders, they will eventually collapse under it, and you'll call it failure. But it wasn't failure. It was fantasy colliding with reality. We live in a world that sells perfection. Every movie, every social media post, every love song whispers the same lie. Love should always feel magical. But magic isn't sustainable. Reality is full of flaws. People are messy. They argue, they make mistakes, they carry baggage. And when that truth shows up, most people panic. They say, maybe I chose wrong. Maybe love isn't supposed to feel this way. So, they leave. They quit. And then they repeat the cycle with someone else, chasing the same illusion again and again, never realizing the problem wasn't love. It was their idea of love. Real love doesn't erase conflict. It doesn't mean constant smiles or never-ending romance. Real love is tested in the moments when things don't feel easy. It's tested in late-night arguments, in misunderstandings, in disappointments. It's tested when you realize your partner has flaws that frustrate you, habits that annoy you, and wounds you can't heal for them. And the question becomes, can you still stand beside them when the fantasy breaks? Can you accept their humanity, just as you hope they accept yours? That's why so many people fail. They don't fail because love is broken. They fail because they confuse perfection with commitment. They want a partner who never changes, who never challenges them, who never brings discomfort. But love without challenge is not love. It's comfort, and comfort never creates depth. What people need to understand is that the foundation of love isn't perfection, it's growth. It's two imperfect people choosing to face life together, even when it gets hard, even when the glow fades. Because make no mistake, the glow always fades. That first rush of attraction, that intoxicating feeling when everything is new, it doesn't last. And it's not supposed to. That's the beginning of love, not the end. But most people don't know that. They think the fading glow means something's wrong. They run from the very stage where love is supposed to mature, where intimacy deepens, and where trust is truly built. So if 95% of people fail in love, it's because 95% of people never let love move past the fantasy stage. They never reach the point where love becomes more than fireworks. They never taste the deeper sweetness of companionship, of loyalty, of knowing someone fully and still choosing them anyway. And here's the harsh truth. Until you let go of your fantasy, you'll never find real love. Because real love doesn't live in the dream you've built in your mind. It lives in the messy, imperfect reality you're afraid to face. The people who succeed in love are not the ones who found perfection, they're the ones who embraced imperfection and still said, "This is where I belong." Love doesn't fail. Expectations do. And the moment you realize that, your entire definition of love changes forever. Love was never meant to be perfect. It was meant to be real. And until you stop chasing perfection, you'll keep running from the very thing your soul is searching for. If unrealistic expectations are the first nail in the coffin of most relationships, then the second is silence. Not the peaceful kind of silence, the dangerous kind. The kind where two people are together but stop being honest with each other. The kind where everything looks fine on the outside, but inside, both hearts are drifting further apart. You see, love doesn't die in explosions. It dies in whispers. It dies in all the conversations that never happen. When you're hurt but you don't say it. When you're afraid but you keep it hidden. When you need something but convince yourself they should just know. And over time, that silence becomes a wall. At first, it's paper thin, barely noticeable. But each unspoken word, each avoided conversation, each suppressed feeling lays another brick. And eventually, two people who were once inseparable find themselves living on opposite sides of a fortress they built together. This is why 95% of people fail in love, not because they stopped caring, but because they stopped talking. And let me tell you something, no one can read your mind. Your partner can't know your fears if you bury them. They can't understand your needs if you never voice them. Yet so many people expect love to come with telepathy, as if they loved me, they'd just know. That's not love. That's laziness. And it destroys more relationships than betrayal ever will. Think about it. How many relationships collapse not because of a single big fight, but because of 1,000 little moments where both sides chose silence over honesty? One person swallows resentment instead of saying, "That hurt me." The other chooses avoidance instead of saying, "I'm struggling right now." And day by day, the gap widens. Until one morning, they wake up as strangers lying next to each other, wondering how the love that once felt unbreakable now feels like a burden. And here's the irony. People leave relationships not because they talked too much, but because they talked too little. They fear conflict so much that they avoid the very thing that could save them: communication. Real communication isn't always comfortable. It doesn't always feel nice. Sometimes it stings. Sometimes it forces you to look at the parts of yourself you'd rather hide. But without it, love has no oxygen. It suffocates. Most people don't fail in love because they don't care enough. They fail because they don't know how to fight the right way. They think avoiding arguments keeps the peace, but avoiding arguments destroys the bond. Conflict isn't the enemy, disconnection is. And the only cure for disconnection is honesty, even when it's messy, even when it hurts, even when your voice shakes. You want to know the couples who make it. They're not the ones who never argue. They're the ones who argue with respect. They're the ones who say, "I'm angry, but I'm not leaving. I'm hurt, but I still choose you. I don't agree with you, but I'm willing to sit here until we understand each other." That is what separates those who endure from those who collapse. The truth is, silence feels safe, but it's poison. It tricks you into believing you're avoiding pain, when really, you're planting the seeds of a future heartbreak. Because love without communication isn't love. It's pretending, and pretending always comes to an end. So if most people fail in love, it's not just because they carried unrealistic expectations. It's because they carried unspoken truths. They confused peace with avoidance, and in doing so, they let their connection die slowly, quietly, invisibly, until it was too late to save. And here's the part most people never admit. Communication takes courage. It means admitting your weakness. It means exposing your fears. It means risking rejection by saying, "This is who I am, this is what I need, this is how I feel." And if you can't do that, you're not really in love. You're just performing love, hoping the act will last forever, but it won't. So let me leave you with this. Love doesn't fail because people fall out of it. Love fails because people fall silent. And the moment you choose silence over truth, you've already started losing the very thing you're desperate to hold on to. Love doesn't need mind reading. It needs honesty. And without honesty, even the strongest bond will eventually collapse. If unrealistic expectations bury the truth, and silence builds walls between two people, then fear of vulnerability is the lock on the door that keeps them apart. Because what most people don't realize is this: love is not about showing your strongest self. Love is about daring to show your weakest. And that is exactly what most people can't do. You see, we've been conditioned to believe that strength means never needing help, never admitting fear, never shedding tears. From childhood, many of us are told, don't cry, toughen up, hold it together. And so, when we finally step into relationships, we bring that armor with us. We smile when we're breaking inside. We pretend to be okay when we're anything but. We say, I'm fine, when the truth is, we're not fine at all. And in doing so, we rob love of the very oxygen it needs to breathe. Raw, unfiltered humanity. The irony is that most people fail in love not because they don't love enough, but because they don't trust enough. They don't trust the other person with their deepest insecurities, their hidden scars, their unspoken fears. They think, if I show them who I really am, they'll leave. And so, they hide. But what they don't understand is this: hiding doesn't protect you. Hiding ensures that you will never be fully seen. And how can you be fully loved if you're never fully seen? Think about it. Every failed love story has this common thread. One or both people wore masks. They only revealed the parts of themselves they thought were acceptable, lovable, impressive. But the parts they were ashamed of, the doubts, the failures, the imperfections, they locked away. And love cannot thrive in a prison. Because real intimacy isn't about the polished version of you. It's about the messy, complicated, insecure version of you. The version you're afraid to show. That's the version that tests whether your partner truly loves you, or just the idea of you. And here's the harsh truth. Vulnerability feels like weakness, but in love, it is the ultimate strength. It takes far more courage to say, I'm scared, than to pretend you're unshakable. It takes far more bravery to admit, I need you, than to act like you're completely independent. And it takes far more power to cry in front of someone than to hide behind a fake smile. The strongest couples aren't the ones who look perfect. They're the ones who choose to be transparent in their imperfection. Most people don't fail in love because they stopped feeling. They fail because they never allowed themselves to feel deeply enough in the first place. They were so busy protecting their pride, their image, their control, that they never allowed true intimacy to exist. And here's the painful reality: you cannot have both absolute control and unconditional love. Love requires surrender. Love requires risk. Love requires the terrifying decision to open yourself up fully, knowing you could be hurt, but trusting that without that risk, you will never experience the depth of connection your soul is longing for. We live in a world where everyone is terrified of rejection, terrified of not being enough, terrified of being abandoned, so we guard our hearts like fortresses. But here's the tragedy: in protecting ourselves from pain, we also protect ourselves from love. And then we wonder why we feel so lonely, even when someone is lying right beside us. The truth is, vulnerability is the price of admission for real love. Without it, what you have is a performance, not a partnership. You might share a house, share a bed, share a life, but you will never share your soul. And without that, no relationship, no matter how passionate it begins. can survive the storms that are bound to come. So, if 95% of people fail in love, this is the final, devastating reason. They choose pride over openness, masks over authenticity, and fear over courage. They want the rewards of love without paying the cost of vulnerability. But love doesn't work that way. Love demands that you risk your heart, and only those willing to risk everything ever discover its true power. Because in the end, love doesn't ask for your perfection. It asks for your truth. And if you can't give that, you will never taste the kind of love that doesn't just survive, but transforms you. Love doesn't fail because people aren't strong enough. It fails because they're too afraid to be weak.